In the small village of Aelford, an ancient manor stood at the edge of a dense, mist-covered forest. Its towering spires and weathered stone walls whispered of a time long past, a time when its halls had been alive with the laughter of a family long gone. Now, it was a hollow shell, its once vibrant energy replaced by an eerie stillness. Yet, despite the manor's eerie appearance, there was something strange about it. It wasn't the usual haunted house full of vengeful spirits or terrifying specters. The ghosts of Aelford Manor were known to be unusually kind. Generations of villagers had reported strange, gentle occurrences in the manor. Lost objects would be returned in impossible ways. Lights would flicker softly to guide those who wandered in the dark. And on cold winter nights, villagers swore they could feel a comforting warmth from invisible hands wrapping around their shoulders. At first, the people of Aelford were suspicious, but over time, they grew used to the idea that the spirits in the manor meant no harm. They even welcomed the spectral assistance, offering small tokens of gratitude at the manor's gates, flowers, food, little trinkets, in hopes of continuing the ghost's goodwill. But then, something odd began to happen. A young woman named Alara, new to the village, had taken up residence near the manor, drawn by its peculiar reputation. She was a historian, fascinated by the stories of gentle ghosts, and sought to uncover the manor's true history. Late one night, she ventured into the manor with her notebooks, hoping to spend a few quiet hours in the library, where the kind spirits were said to dwell. As she walked through the shadowed halls, the air felt unusually heavy. The temperature dropped, but Alara didn't shiver. Instead, a strange warmth radiated from the walls, as if the house itself was alive, watching her every step. In the library, the air was thick with the scent of old paper and dust, but something else lingered, a sweetness that seemed out of place, almost suffocating. As Alara sat down to write, a soft breeze brushed her cheek. A book, seemingly of its own accord, slid from a high shelf and landed at her feet. She smiled, picking it up. "Thank you," she whispered, knowing the spirits were listening. But as she opened the book, the words on the page seemed to shift, blurring in front of her eyes. Her breath caught in her throat, and she felt a sudden, intense pressure in her chest. It wasn't fear, it was something far stranger. An overwhelming sense of love and compassion washed over her, too strong, too suffocating. Her pulse quickened as she realized the ghosts weren't just kind, they were too kind. Their affection for the living was desperate, clinging, as if they were trying to hold on to something they had lost. Alara felt the warmth of invisible hands around her, but now they weren't comforting. They were constricting, holding her in place. The ghosts didn't want her to leave. Their kindness, once gentle, had turned possessive. Suddenly, she heard a voice, a soft, whispering chorus, like a dozen voices speaking as one. Asterisk, stay with us. We'll keep you safe. Forever. Asterisk, her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to rise, but the weight of their affection held her down. The kindness was too much, smothering her, draining her energy. The spirits, in their endless need to care for the living, had forgotten what it meant to let go. They had grown too attached, too loving, too desperate to protect. With a surge of panic, Alara forced herself to stand, breaking free from the invisible grip. She ran toward the door, her legs heavy, the air thick as though it were trying to keep her inside. As she stumbled into the cold night air, gasping for breath, she felt the warmth recede. But as she looked back at the manor, she saw faint figures standing in the windows, their ghostly hands pressed against the glass, watching her with eyes full of sorrow. They hadn't meant to hurt her, they just didn't know how to stop caring. Alara returned to the village, shaken but alive. Yet, the encounter left her with an unsettling question. How long had the ghosts been holding on to the people of Aelford, smothering them with their obsessive kindness? And worse, how many had they refused to let go? The villagers still speak of the ghosts with reverence, unaware of the suffocating kindness that lurks behind those old stone walls. Alara knows the truth but keeps it close, wondering when the spirit's affection will become too much for the village to bear. The ghosts of Aelford Manor were not vengeful, they were just too kind. But kindness, unchecked, can be as dangerous as any curse. And in the shadows of the manor, the spirits wait, still yearning for someone to hold on to. Forever. After her escape from the manor, Alara couldn't shake the unsettling encounter with the spirits. Their kindness, too intense, too suffocating, had left a mark on her mind that she couldn't ignore. Every night, she would wake up with the sensation of phantom hands brushing her hair, invisible whispers telling her not to be afraid. It was as though they were following her, their obsessive need to protect reaching beyond the walls of the manor. Weeks passed, and Alara tried to move on, but a strange pull kept drawing her back toward the forest edge. The villagers remained blissfully unaware of the true nature of the ghost's affection, dismissing Alara's subtle warnings. To them, the spirits were harmless, and the strange happenings in the village, the missing pets, the bouts of mysterious illnesses, the sudden fainting spells were just coincidences, but Alara knew better. One evening, as she sat by her window, she noticed a pale light flickering at the edge of the forest, where the manor stood in eerie silhouette against the moonlit sky. She had seen this light before, only it was growing brighter, more insistent, like a beacon. Against her better judgment, Alara felt drawn to it, an invisible tug pulling her back to the place she swore she would never return. Unable to resist, she grabbed her coat and set out for the manor. As she neared the entrance, the air grew thick with the familiar, sweet scent that had nearly suffocated her the last time she was inside. The light flickered again from an upper window of the library. Alara hesitated at the threshold, but a strange force pushed her forward, the old wooden door creaking open on its own. Inside, the manor was silent, the warmth from the spirits still radiating through the halls, as if they had been expecting her. As she climbed the grand staircase toward the library, the air grew heavier with that unnatural affection, wrapping around her like a smothering blanket. But this time, it was different. The voices whispered again, their tone urgent, almost pleading. Asterisk, help us. We need you. Asterisk. Alara stopped in her tracks. The spirits, for all their overwhelming kindness, seemed to be in distress. Could it be that their obsessive affection was not just a desire to protect the living, but a desperate cry for something else? She entered the library, where the light was now blinding. The air buzzed with energy, and the temperature spiked, the warmth nearly unbearable. There, in the center of the room, stood a figure, a ghostly woman with pale, sorrowful eyes, her translucent form flickering like a candle in the wind. Around her, other spirits hovered, watching in silence. The woman stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. Asterisk, we've forgotten how to be free. Asterisk. Alara's heart pounded in her chest. The ghosts weren't simply too kind, they were trapped in their own affections, prisoners of a love that had spiraled out of control over centuries. They couldn't let go of the living because they couldn't let go of themselves, their spirits chained to the manor by their obsessive need to care, to protect, to hold on. Asterisk. Release us, before we take too much. Asterisk. Before Alara could respond, the ghostly woman pointed to the far wall of the library. There, half hidden behind layers of dust and cobwebs, was an ancient portrait and oil painting of a family that had once lived in the manor. The eyes of the painted figures seemed alive, watching her with a silent plea. At the bottom of the portrait was a name she hadn't seen before, Asterisk. Aelford. Asterisk. As she stepped closer, something strange happened. The figures in the portrait began to fade, their faces blurring, until only a single figure remained clear, the woman from the portrait, standing alone. Alara felt a sudden chill, realizing that the woman before her, the ghost pleading for release, was the last of the Aelford family. Asterisk. Free us, Alara. Asterisk. The ghost whispered. Asterisk. Before we are bound to you, and you to us. Asterisk. Alara's mind raced. She had come seeking the truth about the manor's past, but now the truth was staring her in the face, and it was darker than she could have ever imagined. The spirits weren't just too kind, they were trapped in a cycle of endless love and care, unable to break free. And now, they were growing desperate, their need turning dangerous. Before she could speak, the lights in the library flickered violently, and the warmth around her turned icy. The spirits, once soft and affectionate, began to swirl around her, their whispers turning frantic. Asterisk. Before it's too late. Asterisk. But what did they mean? How could she release them? And worse if she failed, would they turn that suffocating love toward her, trapping her in the manor, making her one of them? Alara stumbled back, her breath coming in short gasps. She had to find the answer, but the weight of their affection was growing stronger, threatening to pull her under. As she fled the manor once again, the unanswered question echoed in her mind. How do you free a ghost who loves too much? The villagers still spoke of the kind spirits of Aelford Manor, but Alara now understood that their kindness was a prison, and the longer she stayed in the village, the more she felt the weight of their eyes watching her, waiting for the moment when they would cling to her too forever. But the portrait remained in the manor, its secret untold, and the spirits waited, growing more desperate with each passing day. Alara knew she had to return to solve the mystery, before they found someone else to hold on to. And soon, she feared that someone would be her. Alara's mind buzzed with questions as she fled the manor that night, her breath visible in the cold air despite the oppressive warmth still clinging to her skin. The whispers of the ghosts echoed in her ears long after she returned to her small cottage in the village. The haunting words "free us before we take too much" stayed with her, gnawing at her thoughts. She tried to continue her research, piecing together the mystery of the Aelford family, but no amount of historical records, diaries, or letters explained how to release the spirits from their obsessive hold. Days turned into weeks, and the village, ever oblivious, went about its quiet life. Yet, Alara couldn't escape the growing sense that something was terribly wrong. The villagers were changing. It started subtly. Mrs. Holloway, the sweet old woman who ran the bakery, stopped coming to market, her normally bright eyes dull and distant. Others began to grow pale, almost lethargic, walking through the streets like ghosts themselves, their faces lined with strange, soft smiles that never reached their eyes. And then, they began to vanish. One by one, the villagers disappeared into the manor. They weren't kidnapped. They went willingly. Alara watched them in the dead of night, silent figures drifting toward the mansion like moths to a flame, entranced by some unseen force. No one who entered the manor returned. By the time Alara realized the gravity of what was happening, it was too late. The spirits, desperate for affection, were now pulling the living into their eternal embrace, smothering them with their love until there was nothing left. The villagers had become part of the manor, absorbed by the ghost's desperate need to care, to protect, to possess. One stormy night, unable to bear the guilt of knowing the truth but not acting on it, Alara made her final decision. She had to return to the manor and confront the ghosts, whatever the cost. She would release them or perish trying. The manor loomed before her, its windows dark, save for the faintest flicker of light deep within. As she entered, the familiar warmth wrapped around her, but this time it felt different, darker, more possessive, like the house itself was alive, waiting for her. Alara climbed the staircase to the library, her footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. The portrait of the Aelford family was still there, the woman's face sharp and clear, her eyes pleading. But now, the faces of the villagers had begun to appear in the background, fading into the edges of the canvas, their expressions peaceful but empty. Suddenly, the room grew colder, and the ghostly woman from before appeared, her translucent form flickering with desperation. Please. Free us. She begged again, but this time her voice held something more fear. Alara took a deep breath, stepping closer to the portrait. She could feel the pull of the spirits, their need to be loved and held close, but now she understood. It wasn't just about kindness, it was about control. They couldn't bear to let go of anyone they cared for. But as Alara reached out to touch the portrait, something shifted in the room. The air thickened, and the whispers grew louder, more frantic. The other spirits materialized around her, their faces hollow, their eyes wide with a terrible hunger. You're one of us now. They whispered, circling her. You belong to us. Alara's heart pounded. She tried to pull her hand back from the portrait, but it wouldn't move. The warmth around her turned icy, and the invisible hands she had once thought of as gentle now gripped her with crushing force. The ghosts were no longer asking for help, they were taking what they wanted. The room spun, and Alara felt her energy draining. Her vision blurred as the spirits pressed closer, their hollow eyes staring into her soul. Asterisk will keep you safe. Forever. Asterisk they whispered. But there was no comfort in their words, only a terrible finality. In that moment, Alara realized the truth. There was no freeing them. The spirits didn't want to be released. They wanted to keep her, just as they had kept the villagers. The portrait wasn't a key, it was a trap, a window into the souls they had claimed. And now, they would add her to it. Another face in the background, another prisoner in their eternal, suffocating embrace. With her last ounce of strength, Alara tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. The warmth consumed her, pulling her into the manor, into the portrait, into their twisted love. Her body went limp, and as her vision faded, she saw her own reflection in the glass of the painting, her face already beginning to blur and fade. The next morning, the villagers noticed the strange stillness in the air. The manor seemed darker, more foreboding. No one spoke of the historian who had once lived on the edge of the forest, and those who still passed by the manor at night swore they could see a new figure in the windows, her face kind, her eyes hollow, watching, waiting for someone new to love. But no one ever dared to approach again, and inside the manor, the ghosts waited, their love eternal, their hunger insatiable, always searching for another soul to keep, forever.